Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I am very well aware I'm not wearing a gray sweater, but fear not, you will still get the same fantastic content as always. So, today I'm going to be reviewing the New Year's Rare machine that has just gone live in North America. Now, the New Year's Rare machine is actually quite a powerful collaboration style event because not only are there new characters, but a lot of the pre-existing ones have been buffed to reasonable levels in order to help keep abreast with the current rate of power creep. So while this may not be as powerful as, say, Bleach, this is still a strong collab nevertheless. So this review will be going over all the cards in detail to give you a better idea and understanding of how they fit in the meta and whether or not you should be spending your magic stones here. So, as a parting note, I guess I just mentioned, is that all players at rank 50 and above will receive one free pull on the New Year's Rare machine. I will be doing my rolls on my Monday Twitch stream, as well as uploading them to YouTube at a later time, so just stay tuned for that. So, as an overview, there are three 8-star rolls, 2 7s, 1 6, 3 5s, and 5 4-stars. So, without further ado, here is the new New Year's Yomi. Now, this is very similar to the Awoken Yomi form that's found in the Rare machine. However, this Yomi actually has this new awakening, which is the enhanced combo, if I'm not mistaken how it's called. It may have a better name, but basically the idea is this enhanced combo awakening provides 2 times damage when you achieve 7 or more combos. So we can view this as a killer awakening in the sense that one card has the potential to spike higher, except it has an on-off switch in that you can somewhat control that activation, because if you match 6 combos it doesn't proc, but obviously with 7 or more it does allow Yomi to deal 2 times damage. Now there obviously will be some sort of variance because you may skyfall into unwanted combos, but the point being is at least has some potential to be turned off. Now, their active skill is the exact same as the regular Rare Machine version in that it provides plus 5 seconds to orb movement time for 3 turns, as well as enhancing all the orbs on the board. So it's somewhat of a lackluster active in all honesty, but their leader skill is where they shine bright because they have 100 times attack and 43.75% damage reduction when matching a 5 orb 1 enhance and 6 plus combos. This effectively yields 1.78 times health and recovery with the same 100 times attack. So in terms of pros, like I said, they have this very powerful leader skill because that allows them to deal basically lethal damage to any monster, as well as having that 2 times damage for themselves, along with having a large degree of damage mitigation and survivability. They have ample time extend, and that can be beneficial because you do have to match up 5 or 1 enhance, as well as trying to optimize the board as best as possible, as well as being able to overcome combo shields because they are a combo-based leader. So unlike a lot of heart cross leaders or very row-heavy leaders, you actually have the potential to make more combos, which is beneficial because a lot of newer spawns tend to have, say, higher combo thresholds. They have very flexible team building in that all you need is really light subs, and ideally light subs with orb enhances. And they do actually have some forms of damage control because their leader skill has multiple components. Now, the cons to New Year's Yomi is that they must make 6 plus combos for this shield. Granted, every board should be at least 6 comboable, but the main issue is, say the board was jammed heavily or poisoned heavily, you may not necessarily be able to separate 6 unique combos, so there can be some potential downsides, but it's just something small and minor. And in addition to that, you actually are going to be dealing 6.25 times attack when you gain that shield. So you are going to have problems stalling on more fragile bosses because say you want to stall, you're going to be chipping away at it and it might push it into a dangerous zone and basically make all that work go for nothing. In addition, they're vulnerable to binds, and that may sound very nitpicky, but presently speaking, a lot to most of the top tier leaders right now are bind immune. And because of bind immunity, their team building is a lot gentler because they can bring softer bind clears, and it just makes your life a little easier when you have your leader skills always being available. And they also must have an enhanced orb. And now, having an enhanced orb may seem, again, very nitpicky, but this does have implications for when bosses change orbs. For instance, bosses that create jammers or poison orbs, if they take away your light orbs, you may not be able to necessarily have the 5 orb 1 enhance, because even if you are able to generate additional orbs, you will not actually have an enhanced orb from that because you convert jammers to light, they're still unenhanced light orbs. Now, Obviously, New Year's Yomi's active skill can correct that, but again, that active skill is not really necessary on both leaders, so it's just kind of a catch-22 in the sense that, yes, you can correct a bad situation, but it's really a bad situation that you shouldn't really have to correct and keep a poor active for that. And last but not least, their sub value is a little lower, just again because their active is not that beneficial. So overall, I feel that New Year's Yomi is basically all I could ever dream for if regular Awoken Yomi received a reincarnated evolution. It preserves this fun playstyle of 5 or 1 enhance and many combos, as well as providing at least a lot of defensive mechanics and damage mitigation. So it's going to be able to tackle endgame content. If I were to say roll 1, which I don't think I could, but if I were to be lucky enough, I could foresee this being a leader that's capable of at least clearing Arena 3 because it does have the damage and the defensive capabilities to tackle high-end content. So it will at least give players who do roll them the opportunity to start clearing endgame content right from the get-go because they come evolved, they don't need any other investment aside from pluses and levels and I guess peas or pies to max skill them. So one thing to note is that because they actually have a 6 combo requirement for their maximum multiplier, that should always be achievable because one thing I've noticed when playing the Awoken Yomi from a long time ago is that you will have at least a 6 comboable board, but it's very challenging to actually get the 7th combo just because of the way the orbs are distributed. You may not necessarily be able to hit the 7th combo. Now, with that in mind, by only needing to hit 6, you can pretty much always activate if you optimize your board properly because unless your orb distribution is strange, you should always have those 6 combos. And in addition to that, because 5 or 1 enhance is more flexible than a heart cross, you are able to put that 5 or 1 enhance in different positions. You can put them as a vertical column or like a little L. You can obviously do the cross, or you can do it as a horizontal line. The point being is you have more flexibility in where you place it, and it should not impede your other combo formation alongside of it. So this is great because it's going to be a little less mentally taxing, if you may, than playing a heart cross leader, because heart cross leaders need to make some sort of other pattern in addition, either a TPA or rows to trigger their maximum potential. So New Year's Yomi is great because you don't have to worry about those shenanigans, and you should always be able to activate. So, like I mentioned, like New Year's Yomi does have, again, some faults, but they are small. Like, it's just that she's great, just not elite. But I would still be very happy if I were to roll her, and if you do roll him or her, you should be happy as well. Next is New Year's Amaterasu for the 8 stars, and she is just okay. I don't think she's that great in all honesty. She is basically her Rare Machine equivalent, except she has the Devil Killer Awakening. And yes, Devil Killer is situationally valuable. It does provide a more offensive bind clear, but do we really need that nowadays with skill inheritance? Because she does have, yes, a very powerful bind clear, but the point of the matter is a bind clear doesn't help you later on in the dungeon. You're almost always often better choosing a bind immune base card with a beneficial active and inheriting a bind clear over top. That way, if you use the bind clear partway through the dungeon, you are actually able to use their beneficial active on the boss. Now, this is not the case with a true bind clear because if you put, say, Amaterasu on your team, you use the bind clear midway through, great, you solve that problem, you get to the boss, and now you're stuck with this bind clear again, and it doesn't actually help you out. So the point being is you're almost always better creating a true bind clear if the binds are only needed to be cleared partway through the dungeon. So yes, the Devil Killer is beneficial. It does give at least some potential for more damage, but then again, her base attack is quite low, so she's not going to be providing much value otherwise. So she is available to purchase for 300,000 monster points. I highly recommend you do not because your monster points are much better spent elsewhere. Now again, if I'm going through this too quickly or too slowly, you can definitely read this on my website. I will be linking this in the YouTube description down below. And last, and certainly not least, is New Year's Canna for the 8-star rolls. And New Year's Canna is one of the best cards to actually roll from this New Year's collab because of how powerful Canna is currently in the meta. Presently speaking, Canna has basically an irreplaceable slot on the ideal Raw Dragon team because of the 4 TPAs and bind immunity, as well as being one of the more outstanding subs for TPA hybrid Miru teams, again because of the 4 TPAs. Now, 4 TPAs with a very healthy amount of base attack allows you to deal large amounts of damage with a single connected 4 match. And this is great because Raw Dragon teams can't bring any orb changes to flood the board to the more suitable light orbs, and mirror teams are able to actually become basically the fastest Heart Cross leader because you make the Cross of Hearts and a single TPA. It's not very orb hungry. You should be able to replenish your orbs, relatively speaking. And with that TPA just from Canna, she's going to be punching through most bosses at that point, provided your other cards do have at least some damage output as well. So the New Year's Canna is basically the exact same as her Rare Machine equivalent, so all the applications that were found there apply to New Year's Canna. Now, New Year's Canna does have slightly higher weighted stats, but she does have the Fire sub-attribute. And perhaps that Fire sub-attribute does lead to some lower damage output overall just because it's light versus fire, but then you may have benefits against, say, light absorb bosses because the last hits the fire. Again, these are all very small things, but she's almost directly comparable in all honesty, and maybe it's just a preference of art of what you want to use. Again, most people may not necessarily have a Canna and a New Year's Canna to choose from, but if you do, just use what you feel is more beneficial because all that separates them is a time extend for New Year's versus a skill boost from Light Canna. And what you need more just depends on, I guess, your team composition and how confident you are matching, because Time Extend can be almost seen as a band-aid, especially on Raw Dragon and Mirror teams who have ample Time Extend, but then again, some people might need that extra bit of movement time if they're unfamiliar with those patterns, or say their Raw Dragon team is not ideal. Now, New Year's Canna, like the other Canna, is great in all aspects except for their active skill. And that active skill is lackluster in all honesty. 2 times damage with 1 turn haste. It's not that beneficial. You are better off inheriting something else over top of her, and that's going to be the case in most scenarios. And the problem is it's a 10-turn cooldown, so it does take time to actually charge the new inherited skill up. Now, I guess one thing I do want to mention is that with the time extend versus the skill boost awakening argument, what you should also choose is dependent on what gemstone princess you have. Because let's say you don't have the TPA Gemstone Princess, you might have the Time Extend or the Skill Boost, or both of those, and you get to choose which one is more beneficial for your team because now you have an extra awakening that you wouldn't have had otherwise. But overall, one of the most powerful cards to roll from this club, hands down. Next, we're into the 7-star rule. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention is that New Year's Canna does actually have modest leadership potential. She does have 36 times attack and 2.25 times recovery, along with 75% damage reduction when matching that Heart Cross. Now, she does have lower damage output, say, compared to Miru or Izanagi, but her bind immunity does give her advantages over Izanagi, and she comes ready to use. So say you're a newer player and you want to jump on this Heart Cross hype train, you can simply pair your Canna with a Miru and be on your merry little way. Now we are entering into the 7-star territory, and we have New Year Horus. And New Year's Horus did receive some buffs, and his active skill actually enhances all orbs except for water, so there is some applications, but it's still kind of lackluster overall. It's like Awoken Yomis as well. Again, not the most helpful, especially from a dual leader perspective. And their leader skill involves you matching all 5 colors as well as a 5-orb 1 enhance. Now, having those each individual component does present some challenges. 5-orb 1 enhance requires you to have 5 fire orbs, and obviously the 5 colors requires you to have at least 3 of the water, wood, light, dark, and then obviously now you need the 5 fire. So these 2 components, when put together, create a leader that is actually very challenging to activate on a consistent basis. You're basically juggling 2 different requirements into one, and yes, there is a very large damage output, but it's a glass cannon, and it's a glass cannon that is challenging to use efficiently. So, presently speaking, there are much easier glass cannons you can utilize, and I don't really foresee the real reason why you would choose to use New Year's Horus over other glass cannons, just because he's so much harder to use, unless you just want that challenge or truly love this unique playstyle. But in terms of benefits, they do have that co-op boost, so when you do play co-op, they actually do have 50% more stats, and that does become significant when you factor in that both of the Horuses have that. So you're basically gaining an extra 750 weighted stats across the whole team with dual leaders. But then again, you may not necessarily want to play this as a leader. And in terms of other pros, one thing else I want to mention is that they have probably the best leader skill name in the entire game, and also the fact that you're the rooster, so you know the chicken kind of fits in, relatively speaking. But in terms of the leader skill name, it is E! E! I don't know how that was translated, but that is impressive nevertheless. Another thing to keep in mind is that New Year's Horse may sometimes be a situational sub for fire teams if you need all those orb enhances. But presently speaking, the teams that need those orb enhances don't really exist because right now Krishna is perhaps the strongest mono fire leader in the game, and dual leaders already provide 10 orb enhances. So New Year's Horse is just overkill. The active skill is a little too long to inherit something efficiently. It's just more so it'd be a kind of a last resort card if you really needed something to fill your team out. And next is New Year's Yamato. And New Year's Yamato trades out 2 additional fire arrows for the co-op boost and Dragon Killer, while being the exact same from an active skill perspective. Now, New Year's Yamato is far superior from a co-op speed farming point of view. This is because they have the 3 skill boosts, which both of them do have, but the co-op boost means they have 50% more stats, and the Dragon Killer allows them to deal 3 times damage to dragons, which, amusingly enough, is probably one of the most common encounters you will find in dungeons. So, New Year's Yamato is one of the best co-op farming subs available because it does fit the build so well for the Yamamoto team, which is 100 times fire leader for just matching 6 fire orbs. So you have the skill boost, you have the bonus stats, you have the Dragon Killer. Now, this is great under these conditions. However, if you are playing a more solo game-oriented playstyle, as well as not necessarily farming dragon-heavy dungeons, New Year's Yamato does fall behind because they have less value because their stats are a little lower, and the Dragon Killer may not necessarily be helpful, and the co-op boost is nothing for you. So you'd probably rather have the regular version just for the additional 2 fire rows. Now, with all that being said, New Year's Yamato is a far sexier Yamato, so again, looks do matter when you do play Puzzle and Dragons. Next is the only 6-star role of New Year's Leyland, and New Year's Leyland has the split evolution in that they can be the Fire Light or Light Fire. So this just simply changes which orb enhances they are heavier in, and which one you choose to use naturally applies to what team you are playing. But their active skill is the same as the regular Leylands, and their leader skill allows you to have 49 times attack when matching any 3 of Fire, Wood, Light, or Heal. Again, it's an okay leader skill, but you're more interested in the sub-potential. Now, the color swap has a lot of flexibility now, not just because of the fact that you have 2 different teams you could play on potentially, but because of how the skill inheritance system works. If you are to inherit New Year's Leyland onto a card, you can choose if she's Fire or Light. And depending on which one you choose, you will be able to grant your receiving base card additional stats. So that is a nice little benefit that is something new that has come out just with the changes to the assist system. So that is something to keep in mind. However, even though she does not produce hearts or have any collateral benefit, there is still a relatively high demand for fire and light orbs because of Ilm and Minerva teams. And New Year's Leyland allows them to play a sub on either team, and it can be either colored based on what style you want to play. In addition, New Year's Leyland does have great synergy with Silk Inherit, so you do have at least a large potential to deal lethal damage. Furthermore, Ilm and Minerva teams tend to be very row-oriented, and the orb enhances greatly help diversify your damage. Next is the 5-star roles, and we're into New Year's Spica. And New Year's Spica follows basically the exact same pattern or trend of Christmas Castor and Pollux, in that she splits her orb enhances between 2 colors while having dual skill bind resists. Her active skill generates a column of light and a column of wood, as well as 1 turn of haste on an 8-turn cooldown. Now, not many teams aside from really just Awoken Apollo can benefit from the 2 colors, so the active skill does have a little bit of a waste component to it. Like, it adds a little bit more to the cooldown just because you're spawning 2 different columns. Maybe some in the future will utilize this, but for now, nothing presently speaking. But with that being said, creating 2 columns of orbs is very beneficial for 5 Orb 1 enhanced teams such as New Year's Yomi, because you already will have formed basically an activated 5 Orb 1 enhanced, so all you need to do is match combos outside of that area, so it can greatly alleviate combo requirements. It could make your team a little faster to play through, and it is beneficial, but it's not necessary by any means. Now, one thing that Christmas, Caster, and Pollux did have an advantage over New Year's Speaker was the fact that it could play in part for Yomi Dragon teams, because Yomi Dragon will be the strongest 5 Orb 1 enhanced leader in the game when they are released. So Spica cannot do that just because she generates wood instead of Dark Orb, so there's a little less value there. Although one thing you may want to keep in mind is either one of those seasonal mechanical 1 gods, they are actually quite strong leaders on their own right. New Year's Spica does provide you with a 42.25 times attack, 1.69 times recovery leader for 5 Orb 1 enhanced just for god or machine types. So they are allowing you to play a reasonably hard-hitting team that will be quite fast to play, as well as unconditional, relatively speaking. So just something to keep in mind if you're a newer player and you do manage to roll her. Now, the downsides are, of course, the fact that she does split her damage awakening, so basically 3 are going to waste. And the columns, only 1 is really going to help you, so it's just lowering the overall value, but for a 5-star, I'd say she's pretty strong all around. I feel like I should close them. I feel like someone just turned on. But next is New Year's Mitsuki, and this card here does have the rarely seen Machine Killer Awakening, and the Machine Killer Awakening does have situational uses when you are playing through machine-heavy content. Unfortunately, she does not act as a very strong base for skill inheritance, even because there's an 8-turn cooldown and only 685 weighted stats. So trying to justify the usage of this Machine Killer is not really that practical, and it's just going to be just too complicated to try and build a team around utilizing her efficiently. And she's just in a lackluster place presently because the active skill does not accomplish very much aside from maybe Shang Mei teams, and no one else can really utilize it that well. So she's just in an awkward place, and aside from art, I feel like this card does not have much value. And last for the 5 stars is New Year's Hanzo, and New Year's Hanzo is very powerful actually. Like the other seasonal ninja series, they all have 1 Killer Awakening, and Killer Awakenings can allow them to form key components to various teams when farming content very quickly. Because of a Killer Awakening, you are able to guarantee 3 times damage for that card, and New Year's Hanzo does have very healthy base attack, as well as being able to reduce the need to match excessive combos or even use extra orb changes because you are hitting so much harder and you'll be able to sweep floors much quicker. Now, in addition to those Killer Awakening benefits, New Year's Hanzo does have the very rare Fire to Light Orb Changer, and that is crucial because there are a lot of players who do utilize Saria's active skill and need to have some sort of combo to synergize with their mirror team, and New Year's Hanzo does fulfill that role. Granted, it is a weaker active alternative than Wedding Akachi, but not everyone has Wedding Akachi, and New Year's Hanzo will fulfill this niche very well. So even if you don't use them for the speed farming dungeon teams, like say Machine Zeus, you can find great value on your mirror or even mono light teams just to convert those fire from Saria into light orbs. And finally, we are into New Year's Tengu, and one thing to note is that all the 4 stars from this collab are unable to qualify for skill inheritance as assistants because they do not have an evolution form, so they still remain in 4 stars. So for New Year's Tengu, it is essentially identical to the farmable alternative with the same active skill and the same awakenings. So many players are going to be thinking, why would I want to roll something that's completely farmable with no extra benefits? Well, there are some extra benefits, but they're a little harder to spot, and all of them are very small, but when added together, they do add up to something meaningful. So, naturally, New Year's Tengu's benefits are the 4 skill boosts and the short 4-turn base cooldown. That allows you to inherit an active skill of your choice, as well as having sufficient skill boosts available in order to have all your active skills ready in time. But what separates New Year's Tengu from his farmable equivalent is the fact that he has a light sub-attribute instead of dark. Now, that light instead of dark opens up potentials in all attribute required dungeons, as well as the fact that he does lower the dependency on skill boost and no duplicate dungeons, because you normally run, say, 2 Tengus, now you can run Tengu and New Year's Tengu and still gain 8 skill boost, but not fail the no duplicates clause. In addition, because of that light sub-attribute, you are able to obviously dodge Dark Binds. Now, that has most applications when you're playing, say, Special Descend Rush, because there's a preemptive Dark Bind on floor 1, but with New Year's Tengu, that doesn't actually occur. So again, these are all small little benefits, but added together, it's quite meaningful for those players who like to farm content very heavily. Now, obviously the drawback is if you're not one of those players, it has very little value for you, but I guess you could say that it at least comes ready to use. You don't have to evolve it, all you need to do is awaken it and skill it up. So it is a little faster, and I would keep all the New Year's Tengus you roll, because having extra Tengus that are readily available is always beneficial when moving forward in Puzzle & Dragons. New Year's, I don't want to say that name, is a lackluster card in all honesty. Their active skill generates 3 light orbs at random, but Ariel does that better, and Anna Valkyrie is a farmable option that basically provides a much better orb changer as well. So she doesn't do anything well, and the fact that she doesn't do anything well means that it's just going to be lackluster and underutilized, because in an ideal world, you want a card to do something that no one else can do in their own way. So whether it's niche or not, you want them to be good at it. Like Tengu fulfills that niche of skill boost. No one else is as good as him, and he's going to remain that way until I think that whale blue card is released in North America. So Tengu fills that role, so you want to have him. Whereas New Year's Girl does not. So it's just not meaningful at this point in time, and I doubt they're actually going to buff her. New Year's Majedra is interesting. Like, it looks like it has a great number, like, useful awakenings. It does have 5 enhanced wood orbs, so that is significant because it does provide at least 100% orb enhancement for your entire team. Unfortunately, their active skill is 8 turns, and it does provide, I guess, 50% damage reduction and 1.5 times balance enhance, but those are 2 pretty weak components on their own, and when they're combined, they just add turns to the cooldown, so you're basically extending the cooldown for a lackluster active skill, whereas if it was just one of those components, it could be a lot stronger because you could inherit something over top of it and partially justify the low-weighted stats. But at this time, it's a little harder to justify the usage. Furthermore, they actually lack the laser beams, which made them really cool and exciting, so I think it's kind of weird. New Year's Sandalphon is another card that was released that could have been strong, but they've kind of just fallen off the radar just because they don't have a very beneficial active skill that's incredibly long cooldown, and they're only 50% bind immune, which makes no sense. But the point being is 2 times damage enhanced for 2 turns for just healers is quite restricted, as well as 35% damage reduction for 2 turns is situational, but together as a 14-turn cooldown, that is a little hard to swallow when you can get a Dark Anomaly Shield for 6 turns and pretty much any other damage enhance for more value with less turns. So combining 2 okay elements into 1 active does not benefit New Year's Sandalphon, so it's just an awkward spot. Maybe if they were bind immune, they could have at least a bit more applications, but presently speaking, you're taking a gamble, as well as having no skill boost or skill lock resist. It's just hard to fully utilize New Year's Sandalphon. And lastly, we come to New Year's Jeanne d'Arc, and my French is terrible, like any other language I try to speak, but she has 6 auto-heal awakenings, and maybe that amuses you because you can heal 4,800 health every turn, but let's be honest, it's not that helpful, and the fact that her active skill is probably one of the worst I've ever seen, in that it does a trivial amount of damage to all enemies, and it gives you 2 times recovery for 2 turns. Like, what is this actually helping? It's not helping anyone, and you could inherit something over top just because it's a short cooldown, but you're using a body with auto-heal awakenings, so it's just strange. Like, maybe if they buff auto-heal awakenings even more, and maybe if you're playing a team with excessive amounts of health and no actual recovery, maybe it could work, but I really don't see this card having much usage, to be honest. So, yeah, she's an awkward spot. I don't know why they introduced her. She's not that pretty, and she's supposed to be new and should be well positioned against power creep, but she just sadly isn't. So, In conclusion, this New Year's collab is actually a pretty strong collaboration overall. Like, yes, there is some weak silvers. Like, the silver's not as standout amazing as previous collabs, with only New Year's Tengu really being the best draw. But there's at least value in all the different tiers. Like, 2 of the 5 stars are good. Leyland is good. Yamato is amazing. Horus is is reasonable. Yomi is fantastic, and Kana is incredible. So there's a lot of value spaced out. So if you do get a Tengu, you should be happy. Like, it is a beneficial card to have. So whether you choose to roll or not will obviously be based on your Monster Box requirements and goals for the game, but this is one of the stronger collabs to roll in. So let me know what you think about the New Year's collab. How much do you plan to roll? Have you rolled already, and are you happy with your results? Let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic day, a happy Lunar New Year, and happy puzzling!